Deep in the heart of big dangerous forest, there were two great kingdoms, the Lion Kingdom and the Tiger Kingdom. These two powerful realms had coexisted in uneasy peace for generations, each ruling over their own territories. The Lion Kingdom ruled the sunlit savannas, where the golden grasses swayed in the warm breeze, while the Tiger Kingdom dominated the dense jungles, where shadows played tricks and the air smelled of damp earth. Though they shared the same world, the lions and tigers rarely crossed paths, for their realms were divided by a wide river that cut through the land like a shimmering ribbon. On either side of the river, life was different. The lions thrived in the open spaces, where their roars echoed for miles and the sun warmed their fur. The tigers, on the other hand, lived in the dark, mysterious forests where they moved silently through the trees, their striped coats blending with the undergrowth. The kings of both kingdoms were proud and wise, but they carried the weight of their land's history. Many years before, there had been great battles between lions and tigers. Those wars had ended in a fragile peace, one that both sides were determined to maintain. The Lion King, a mighty beast with a mane the color of fire, ruled over his pride with fairness, while the Tiger King, sleek and fearsome, governed his jungle with an iron will. But peace is a delicate thing, and sometimes the smallest of sparks can ignite the greatest of fires. It all began with a chance meeting. On the edge of the Lion Kingdom, where the savanna met the dense jungle, there was a hidden glade, a place untouched by war or history. In this secret spot, a young lion named Leo often came to think. He was the Lion King's youngest son, and unlike his older brothers, who were fierce warriors, Leo had a gentle heart. He was not interested in battles or borders. He loved the beauty of the world, the songs of birds and the peace that nature brought. One afternoon, as Leo lay in the soft grass of the glade, he heard a rustling in the bushes. At first, he thought it was a deer or a bird. But when he looked up, he found himself face to face with a pair of striking green eyes. It was a young tigress. Her name was Tira, the daughter of the Tiger King. She was sleek and strong, with a coat of bright orange and black stripes. Like Leo, she had wandered away from her home, seeking a place where the worries of the kingdom did not weigh on her shoulders. When their eyes met, both Leo and Tira felt something neither of them could explain. "Who are you?" Leo asked, his voice soft but filled with curiosity. "I am Tira," she replied cautiously, her eyes never leaving his. "And you? You're from the Lion Kingdom, aren't you?" Leo nodded. "I am Leo, son of the Lion King." For a moment, there was silence. They both knew that their kingdoms had been enemies for as long as they could remember. They should have turned and walked away, but something held them there. Instead of fear or mistrust, there was something else between them, something neither of them had ever felt before. As the days passed, Leo and Tira returned to the glade again and again. They spent their afternoons together, talking, laughing, and learning about each other's worlds. Tira told Leo about the deep, shadowy jungles of her home and how the sound of the rain on the leaves was like music. Leo told Tira about the wide, golden plains of his kingdom, where the wind was like a gentle whisper in the heat of the day. They were from different worlds, but in that secret glade, none of it mattered. Soon they fell in love, but their love was a dangerous one, for if anyone discovered that a lion and a tiger had grown so close, it could bring the fragile peace between their kingdoms crashing down. For many months, Leo and Tira met in secret, but secrets are hard to keep, especially when the eyes of a kingdom are always watching. It wasn't long before Leo's older brother, Kiro, began to notice that something was different. Leo was often absent, his mind seemed distant, and he was not as focused on his duties as a prince. One day, Kiro followed Leo, staying hidden in the tall grasses as his brother slipped away into the jungle. Kiro's heart sank when he saw Leo with Tira, a tiger, the daughter of their enemies. He returned to the Lion Kingdom that night, troubled and angry. He knew that this could not be allowed to continue. In the Tiger Kingdom too, whispers began to spread. Tira's brother, Ronan, noticed that his sister often wandered off alone, returning with a dreamy look in her eyes. Suspicious, he followed her, hiding in the shadows of the jungle. When he saw her with Leo, he was filled with rage. Both brothers returned to their respective kingdoms, and soon the news reached the ears of the kings. The Lion King was furious. "A son of mine consorting with a tiger? Have you forgotten our history? They are our enemies." The Tiger King's reaction was no different. "This is a betrayal of our people. The lions have always been a threat to our way of life. This cannot stand." Both kings called their councils, and war was soon on everyone's lips. The fragile peace that had held for so long was now shattered. As word of Leo and Tira's love spread, the tension between the two kingdoms grew. The Lion King, determined to protect his son and his kingdom's honor, gathered his armies. The savannah was soon filled with lions, their golden coats gleaming in the sunlight, their roars echoing across the land. Kiro, filled with the fire of battle, led the charge. On the other side of the river, the Tiger King prepared his warriors. The jungle, once quiet and mysterious, now buzzed with the anticipation of war. Ronan, his heart burning with anger, vowed to fight until the lions were driven from their lands for good. Leo and Tira, devastated by the news of the coming war, met one last time in their secret glade. "I'm so sorry, Leo," Tira whispered, her eyes filled with tears. "This is all my fault." "No, it's not," Leo replied, his voice filled with determination. "We didn't ask for this. We didn't want this war. But it's because of us," Tira said. "Our love has brought this upon our kingdoms." Leo looked into her eyes and shook his head. "Number. It's not our love that's to blame. It's the hate that has been there for generations. We were just the spark." They knew that they could not stop the war, but they swore to each other that they would do everything in their power to end it as soon as possible. With heavy hearts they parted, each returning to their respective kingdoms, knowing that the next time they met, it might be on the battlefield. The day of the first battle dawned hot and bright. On one side of the river, the lions gathered, their claws sharp, their eyes fierce. On the other, the tigers crouched low in the shadows of the trees, their stripes blending with the undergrowth. The air was thick with tension as both sides prepared to charge. Leo stood beside his father, his heart heavy with sorrow. He had never wanted this, but now there was no turning back. His father had forbidden him from seeking out Tira again, and he knew that if he disobeyed, he would be cast out from his pride. On the other side of the river, Tira stood with her brother, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that Leo would be on the battlefield, and the thought of seeing him fighting against her own people filled her with dread. With a deafening roar, the Lion King gave the signal, and the lions surged forward, their powerful bodies racing across the plains. The tigers responded with equal ferocity, their silent charge a deadly force as they burst from the jungle. The two sides met in the middle, and the battle began. Claws slashed through the air, and teeth snapped as lions and tigers fought with all their might. The roar of the battle echoed across the land, a terrible sound that carried far beyond the battlefield. The once peaceful river that had divided the two kingdoms now ran red with blood. In the midst of the chaos, Leo and Tira found each other. Their eyes met across the battlefield, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. But they knew that they could not stop the fighting alone. The battle raged around them, and all they could do was fight to survive. For days, the war continued. Neither side could gain the upper hand, and the cost of the fighting weighed heavily on both kingdoms. The Lion King and the Tiger King, once proud and strong, now saw their people suffering. The war that had begun because of their children's love had spiraled out of control, and both kings began to wonder if the price of victory was too high. Leo and Tira, desperate to end the fighting, devised a plan. They knew that if they could bring their fathers together, perhaps they could make them see that peace was the only way forward. But it would not be easy. Both kings were stubborn, and the wounds of the past ran deep. Under the cover of night, Leo and Tira moved silently through their respective territories. They had agreed to meet in their secret glade, but this time with a purpose far beyond their own love. The war had to end, and they knew that the only way to stop it was to convince their fathers to meet face to face. Leo's heart pounded as he crossed the river that separated the savannah from the jungle. The moonlight reflected off the water, casting long, shifting shadows. He could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the battles fought only hours earlier, still heavy on his mind. But his love for Tira and his hope for peace drove him forward. When he reached the glade, Tira was already waiting. Her green eyes were sad but determined. "They'll never agree to meet," she said quietly. "Not after so much blood has been shed." "They have to," Leo replied. "If they don't, this war will destroy both our kingdoms. We'll lose everything." Tira nodded. "But how do we convince them? My father is furious. He'll never listen to me, and your father—" "I know," Leo interrupted, "but we have to try." They spent the rest of the night planning. They knew the risk was great. If their fathers discovered their secret meeting, or if their plan failed, it could mean their banishment, or worse. But they also knew that without this one last chance, the war would rage on until nothing was left. When dawn broke, they parted ways, each with the heavy task of convincing their fathers to meet. Back in the Lion Kingdom, Leo approached his father's den with a heart full of fear and hope. The Lion King, his great mane streaked with gray from the stress of the ongoing war, looked up as his youngest son entered. "Father," Leo began, keeping his voice steady, "I have something important to ask." The Lion King's eyes narrowed. "What is it, Leo? Speak quickly. The War Council is gathering soon." Leo took a deep breath. "I want you to meet with the Tiger King." The room fell silent. For a moment, the Lion King said nothing, his eyes growing cold as he processed his son's words. "Meet with the Tiger King?" he repeated, his voice low and dangerous. "After all that has happened? After their kind has spilled the blood of our people?" "Yes," Leo said firmly, "because if we don't, more blood will be spilled. This war won't end unless you talk, both of you." The Lion King's claws flexed into the dirt floor of the den, and for a moment, Leo thought he had gone too far. But then his father sighed, a deep and tired sound. "And what makes you think the Tiger King will agree to such a meeting?" he asked, his voice softer now, though still laced with bitterness. Leo hesitated, knowing the truth could ruin everything. I believe he wants peace as much as we do, Father. The fighting has cost both sides dearly. Please just meet with him, one meeting. If it doesn't work, we can continue the war, but give peace a chance." The Lion King stared at his son for a long time, then finally nodded. "Very well. I will meet with him, but only once. If he so much as hints at deception, I will strike him down myself." Relief flooded through Leo, but there was still one more step to the plan. Meanwhile, in the Tiger Kingdom, Tira stood before her father, trying to keep her voice steady as she made the same plea. "Father, this war must end. Both sides are suffering." The Tiger King, his amber eyes gleaming in the flickering torchlight of his den, growled low. "End? After the lions have dared to challenge us? After they have dared to spill the blood of our warriors?" "They've suffered as much as we have," Tira said, her voice soft but resolute. "Their king feels the weight of this war, just as you do. Meet with him, Father. Face him and see if there's another way." The Tiger King's growl deepened, but there was hesitation in his eyes. Tira knew her father was proud, but she also knew he was tired. Tired of sending his people into battle. Tired of losing those he loved. "If this is some lion trick," the Tiger King rumbled, "then they will pay dearly." "It's not a trick," Tira promised. "Just a meeting." For a long moment, the Tiger King was silent. Finally, he nodded. "Very well, but if the Lion King insults our honor, I will show no mercy." Tira bowed her head in thanks, relief washing over her. The first step had been taken. The meeting was set to take place at dusk, on neutral ground by the river that had always divided the two kingdoms. It was a tense and uneasy time for both sides, as lions and tigers gathered on their respective sides, watching their kings with wary eyes. Leo stood beside his father, his heart pounding in his chest. Across the river, he could see Tira standing with her father, her gaze locked on his. They shared a brief, silent moment, knowing that everything they had worked for now rested on this fragile truce. The Lion King and the Tiger King approached the center of the riverbank, where the water flowed gently between them. The two rulers stared at each other for a long time, the air thick with the weight of their history. "I have come as promised," the Lion King said, his voice low and steady. "But know this, if you try any treachery, I will not hesitate to strike you down." The Tiger King's eyes flashed, but he kept his voice calm. "I could say the same, Lion King, but we are here to talk, are we not? For a moment, it seemed as though the tension might explode into violence. But then slowly, the Lion King nodded. "We are." The two kings sat by the riverbank, the sun setting behind them, casting long shadows across the land. For the first time in generations, the leaders of the Lion Kingdom and the Tiger Kingdom spoke not as enemies, but as rulers who had both lost too much to the war. They talked of the lives lost, the land ravaged, and the future of their people. Both knew that if the war continued, there would be nothing left to rule. The conversation was tense, but as the night deepened, a fragile understanding began to form. Leo and Tira watched from a distance, their hearts in their throats. It was slow, but for the first time, they felt a glimmer of hope. After hours of discussion, the two kings rose from the riverbank. Their faces were grim, but there was a new light in their eyes, a flicker of possibility. The Lion King turned to his son. "Leo, come here." Leo approached cautiously, his heart pounding. His father's gaze was stern but not unkind. "You risked much for this, my son. You believed in peace when I had given up on it." The Lion King looked over at the Tiger King. "We have agreed to a truce, but it will not be easy. There are many who still thirst for revenge on both sides." The Tiger King nodded in agreement. "But perhaps, if we give them something to believe in, something that unites us rather than divides us, we can truly end this war." Leo and Tira exchanged a hopeful glance. "And what would that be?" Leo asked, though he already had a sense of what his father was going to say. "You and Tira," the Lion King said, his voice firm. "Your love is what started this war, but it might also be what ends it. A union between our two kingdoms, a marriage between a lion and a tiger, could be the symbol of the peace we seek." Tira's heart leaped at the words, but she also felt the weight of them. Could their love really heal the wounds of war? "It will not be easy," the Tiger King warned. "There will be those who oppose it. But if you are both willing, this could be the start of something new." Leo looked into Tira's eyes, and in that moment, he knew the answer. "We are willing," he said, his voice filled with determination. Tira nodded, her heart filled with the same resolve. "We will do whatever it takes." The news of the truce spread quickly through both kingdoms, and soon after, the announcement of the marriage followed. Many were shocked and some were angry. The idea of a lion and a tiger joining together seemed impossible to some, an insult to others. But there were also those who saw it as a chance to end the war and start anew. The wedding was held in the glade where Leo and Tira had first met. The sun shone bright that day, casting golden light over the land. Lions and tigers gathered together, their differences set aside for this one moment of unity. Leo stood tall, his golden mane shining in the sunlight as he watched Tira approach. She moved with the grace of the jungle, her striped coat gleaming in the dappled light of the trees. They stood together before their people, side by side, a symbol of the peace that now stretched across the land. As they exchanged vows, their love became more than just their own. It became a bond between two kingdoms, a bridge over the river that had once divided them. Leo and Tira stood side by side, their hearts full, knowing that their union symbolized the end of generations of hatred. The ceremony was simple but powerful. The Lion King and the Tiger King, standing together for the first time, blessed the union, though their eyes remained wary. The king's advisors and warriors from both sides watched with silent skepticism, but even they could not deny the beauty of the moment. Lions and tigers, once mortal enemies, were gathered together in peace for the first time in living memory, and they danced and ate together. The two kingdoms lived happily together afterwards as Leo and his wife grew together in love.